Derby County have a host of first teamers heading on international duty during this international break, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they all get on in the matches for their senior national teams. Now, there is a couple of academy players who are going away with their national team as well, but this video is going to be purely focused on those first team players. Now, obviously, the most notable ones are Patrick Agyemang, Max Johnston, Ben Briatandíaz and Ibu Adams, who are all set to make appearances for their national team over the course of the next couple of weeks. Now, Max Johnston is the latest addition. He's been added into Scotland's senior squad over the course of the last 24 hours. It's going to be interesting to see how he gets on. Now, we're going to take a look into each fixture that these players are going to be getting into. So if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. But let's get into it. Now, Patrick Agyemang has been selected for the senior squad for the US of A, and he will be going and playing in a maximum of 2 games under the former Tottenham and Chelsea manager by the name of Mauricio Pochettino. Now, obviously, he missed the last set of international break as a result of his hernia operation, which he had after returning from the Gold Cup back in the summer. Now, it's really interesting to see how this is going to go for Patrick Agyemang, because I think being on the international stage, it gives him that opportunity to break into a new stratosphere. Now, both games are at home for America. They play against Ecuador and Australia. I'm not entirely sure if they play in different venues. They play one in the O2 Stadium in Texas, which is against Ecuador. And they play another in Dick's Sporting Goods Park, which is in Colorado. Now, this is brilliant for Agyemang. He gets the opportunity to play against 2 good senior national teams as well. And both games are relatively in quick succession. They play on Saturday at 1:30 our time, and then on Wednesday at 2 o'clock our time as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how Patrick Agyemang does. Now, obviously, if we look at some of the players in this squad with Mauricio Pochettino, you've got Haji Wright, you've got Timothy Weah, you've got Florian Balogun, you've got Christian Pulisic. You look at Brendan Aronson from Leeds United. There's Tim Ream, former Fulham. You've got Antoine Robinson from Fulham. You've got the likes of Chris Richards from Crystal Palace. There's so many high quality names within this USA squad. Now, do I think the USA are a great national team or a great squad? Ultimately, in my personal opinion, no. But it will be interesting to see how Patrick does get on over the course of these couple of games. And it is going to be interesting to see whether he is a starter for the US men's national team or whether he has moved to sort of a second fiddle role. Now, Max Johnston, as mentioned earlier, was called up over the course of the last 24 hours, and he's got 2 games to play for Scotland as well. They play up against Greece in Scotland tomorrow, and then they play Belarus on Sunday. I believe both games are at Hampden Park, but I will just check so that I give you all the correct information. Yeah, both games are at Hampden Park. They play at 7:45 tomorrow and at 5 o'clock on Sunday. Very, very good set of games really for Johnston, and hopefully he gets the opportunity to start both games. But obviously there is a lot of quality within this Scotland squad in that sort of in those fullback positions. You look at Hickey from Brentford. There's Robertson from Liverpool. There's a fair few players who can play in those sort of fullback roles. There's Kieran Tierney as well, who's another one to sort of keep an eye on. So it will be interesting to see whether he does start both the games or whether he's sort of that sort of backup option off the bench. But he'll have both of his games done by Sunday. He'll be back with Derby by Tuesday. So I've got no worries about him. We'll go into my worries about Agyemang, Adams and Ben Briatandíaz in just a moment's time. But now on to Ibu Adams. Now, they play 2 games over the course of the next few days. They play Gabon in Gambia at the Moi International Sports Centre at 2 o'clock our time on the 10th of October. They then face up against Seychelles on the 14th of October at 2 o'clock our time again at the National Sports Complex Pitch 1, which is apparently an artificial surface. And now this is realistically, it's okay for Ebou Adams, right? It's okay. He's been quite decent for Gambia, sorry, over the course of his appearances. Really, yes, he got sent off. What was that? Like 12 months ago, maybe a bit longer than that. In one of their in one of their major tournaments, but he's always done fairly decent for them. So it is interesting to see sort of how he gets on this time around as well with 2 games. And then we've got Ben Brereton Diaz, who is obviously with Chile. He is with them on Saturday. They play midnight our time up against Peru at Santiago de Chile. I don't think that's what the stadium's called. I think that's where the stadium is. And then they play Peru in Peru with no venue actually noted on the 18th at 11 a.m. our time. Now, it is going to be interesting to see how Brereton Diaz gets on. Obviously, in the last international break, he had a couple of iffy moments. Got in the right positions, just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Now, let's talk about my issues with these international duties, and then with Derby playing at 12:30 on the 18th. Now, I'm not saying that Derby County deserves special treatment or anybody deserves special treatment, right? But if we look at USA, for example, their final game is 2 o'clock our time on Wednesday. So at best, Patrick Agyemang is back with Derby on Thursday, but that would be a recovery day for him. So he wouldn't be back training with the squad until Friday, depending on how long flights are, all of that jazz, right? So Agyemang probably won't be available to start on Saturday against Oxford. You then look at Gambia, which is probably the best possible one, really. They play on Tuesday at 2 o'clock our time. Ebou Adams can be back in the UK on Wednesday, back in training on Thursday, probably be available for the weekend. Now, all of these players will probably be within the squad on the weekend anyway when we play up against Oxford. But it just puts you on the back foot, especially when, like, Agyemang scored the equaliser in the game just gone. Ebou Adams has obviously been a big part of Derby's squad over the course of the last 18 months or so. And then you go Ben Brereton Diaz. Now, this is the one that has really frustrated me, if I'm completely honest. Peru play Chile on the 18th of October on Saturday at 11 a.m. Derby play on that same day at 12:30. Now, Brereton Diaz has to make a call, really. Is he going to stick with Chile after the Saturday game and stay another week to play against Peru? Or is he going to come back to Derby and miss out on an international cap? Now, I personally think he'll probably play in the international game, and that is fair enough. He's more than entitled to do that. That is essentially his job, to play football, and obviously his national team have called him up. It's a great opportunity for him. But do I think that realistically he should be in a Derby kit on Saturday? Absolutely. Now, obviously, we're going to have to wait and see how that goes. Obviously, we've had no confirmation from John Eustace or Derby County or anything like that Brereton Diaz won't be available, but I probably wouldn't anticipate hearing about that probably until next Thursday anyway. So there's a lot to discuss in that regard, and we will keep across it over the course of the next few weeks. We'll have an update on all the games out in a few days' time as well. So if you have not done so already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye, guys.